Now let's speak to Raphael Wober of the Associated Press. He's joining us now from Pyongyang. And Raphael, reports describe these as the toughest sanctions ever on the DPRK. Any reaction there in Pyongyang at this stage?
The DPRK always says that it doesn't care about the sanctions. And just last week, after US President Obama signed into law new unilateral US sanctions against the DPRK, the foreign ministry here came out with a similar refrain that they don't care about sanctions. They've lived with sanctions for so long, it doesn't matter, and they'll still get by and carry out the nuclear and missile and space programs that they want to pursue. But we've seen over the years that there have been occasions where sanctions or financial measures taken against the DPRK have had an effect. Most well known is back in 2005 when the US Treasury Department took what it called financial measures against a bank in Macau which held DPRK accounts, and about $25 million worth of DPRK money was frozen there, and that caused a big problem which had to be resolved. So there have been cases where these things do bite, and as well as that, from personal experience I can say over the years that there are numerous occasions where the effect of sanctions on and around the DPRK have a big impact on, above all, the banking transactions as well as the ability to move goods in and out of the country. So I think that on the surface, the DPRK will maintain a very strong and fierce stand that it doesn't care about sanctions, and it will decry them as part of the US hostile policy against it. But below the surface, there have certainly been cases over the years where these sanctions do have an effect, and if there are even tougher sanctions, it could be that the effect will be more felt by people working in and dealing with the DPRK.
Raphael, there's been so much talk in the West that the DPRK is isolated, and now even the relations it has with China seem strained. Any concerns there about that?
On the one hand, here in Pyongyang, you can see a very developed picture compared to a few years ago. The goods in the shops and the clothes that people wear, everything is much brighter, newer, and more available than it used to be. This is a lot to do with the ability to trade across the border with China, the biggest neighbor here. But at the same time, anybody who is involved in that kind of trade, as well as people who are visitors coming here, are familiar with the kinds of problems that kind of trade faces. So most of all, I think that people will be looking at what happens if and when Chinese banks take further action against DPRK accounts, DPRK money in Chinese banks, the ability to move money back and forth, as well as the main border crossing points where goods come in from China, and that also includes ports in China and ports in the DPRK. And if these places are affected, then the quality of life and the ability of people to trade, as well as the bigger picture of missile programs or nuclear development, could well be affected.
Raphael Wober joining us from Pyongyang live. Thanks so much.